You're listening to Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec. I'm Cameron Walters, the application security and DevSecOps builder trying to automate the world. With me is Kurt Hendel, a battle-tested security architect with a zero-trust worldview. We turn real-world security chaos into conversations that actually matter. So grab your cup of coffee and let's travel back in time to the original recording. Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec starts now. And Kurt, we're here. We're live. We've made it again.
Doing it again.
Doing it again.
What is this week? Episode 13?
13. And
It's crazy.
We're coming up on, I would say, a week and a half since our release.
10 days.
10 days. So
I told someone about it earlier, so I knew.
Okay, fair enough.
Cheating.
I was like, how do you have that number in your head? I'd have to do the math. It came out on Wednesday, and so we had to do, about 10 days, I would say. Yeah, makes sense. Well, welcome everybody who's listening to Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec. Today, we have at least the running title for this is Untangling Cloud Security, Foundations, Failures, and What Teams Miss. I have my glorious and crazy caffeinated co-host, Kurt. Say hi.
Hello. I am over caffeinated. I did tell you that. So it's going to be fun.
You did. Yeah, you did. You do sound a little quiet. I'm actually on the fly right now. Gonna turn you up a little.
Just the levels. You usually test me on the mic before we start. We didn't do that today.
I think it's just because you're not yelling yet.
So once you gotta get me riled up.
Yeah, once you start yelling, I'll see the little red bars go red, and then it'll be like, oh, okay, there we go.
It'll happen.
Yeah. I'm your other host, I guess, Cameron. I do stuff with things with security.
Never do it justice.
Cool. And then you introduce me.
Well, you call me glorious. I'm just a cloud security architect, man. Come on now. You're gonna test me, and who knows? Maybe I'll get the answer wrong, and someone will leave a comment for us for once. But we've got the AppSec maestro. That's what I call you, the master of application security, product security wrangler. We call you all kinds of fun stuff. So stop selling yourself short.
One of these
days, we're gonna have some fun today.
Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna put together a proper intro for myself and have that and be humble enough to say it. I don't know. We'll see. But today I think we have an exciting topic. I know for me, I think one of my favorite parts, I think if people looked up our LinkedIns, they would notice that we work together. We have worked together at 2 different companies. One of my favorite things, in a side tangent, side quest, is that one of my favorite parts of working with you is that we complement each other, right? We both handle, I always say we're the same coin, 2 different sides, right? You're handling the architecture and cloud security side, where I help you some there. And then I do the application security side, where you help me some there too. So we're able to really hunker down and nail down this technology without having to have one person do that. With both of us, I think it's divide and conquer.
Dynamic duo. When we both show up, you're in trouble.
True that. I could see that. But the most important question of every time we have this podcast, what coffee are you drinking?
I went back to the Partners coffee from that roastery in New York because it's a nice balanced medium roast. And my wife convinced me to try oat milk in my coffee. So I'm trying that today, and it's just all right, but I'll take it. It's not bad. It's all right.
Or what would be the alternative? Like real milk, like whole milk?
Like a whole milk sometimes for lattes will do that, or I'll just have black coffee sometimes, or sometimes black coffee with a little bit of sugar, sweeten it up. Got to mix it up once in a while. Sometimes you like jet fuel, sometimes you like something a little more light and calories for energy, because I need those.
Fair enough. Well, I am drinking out of a Racticino mug. Yes, you can get a proper Deep Space Nine Racticino mug. And so I have one. My wife was like, when she saw it and we started watching the series, she was like, I have to buy it. And she found it, bought it, and now whenever we watch Deep Space Nine, she drinks out of a Racticino mug. And I made some, basic Kirkland, French roast, but my wife bought a big jar of dulce de leche, which is, it's like that like caramel like kind of,
Yeah,
stuff
you
that
got that in your coffee?
and I put an obscene amount of it in there.
Oh
It
man.
feels kind of like Starbucks or like, like the shops where they're just like half of it is sugar. Yeah, it's that.
Oh man, you're gonna be wired like me at the end of this.
One can
It's gonna
hope.
be fun. I've always
One can
wanted to
hope.
see that day come.
That's fair. That's fair. One can
Today's
hope.
the day.
Yeah. Alrighty, so we're jumping into the cloud, right? And I think the goal of this podcast is to really break it down from a top level kind of perspective, right? And with that, I think the best thing to talk about around the cloud is, can you define it? Kurt, tell me what the cloud is.
It's a pocket of moisture in the sky that does all of your computing for you.
Boom, done. End podcast. We've done
That's
it.
it. We're done. That's cloud.
Done.
How do you secure it? You can't. It's flying through the sky.
That's fair.
Old man yells at cloud. Happens all the time.
All right. All right.
Seriousness, it's that on-demand compute. We call it the cloud because it's kind of like this being that's floating out there in space, right? So it's on-demand compute, it's storage, it's networking. All it is a ton of data centers with connectivity, fast connectivity, I should say, all around the world. And that compute power is available for purchase at a premium, and you don't have to run your own data centers. It's amazing.
I mean, before that, right? The running joke was the cloud is just somebody else's computer.
It really is that somebody else is just mega corporations in most cases. And well, let's face it, Amazon makes the money it makes because of AWS not selling books anymore.
True that. I mean, everything kind of runs, and we're kind of seeing that in the last week when what was it?
They just keep happening.
Yeah, somebody does something. I feel like it's always DNS. I actually didn't read what happened to CloudFront exactly, and why
It was
CloudFront
DNS.
is DNS again.
Well, I don't even remember at this point because we had the Amazon event, which took down half the internet because that's how much internet runs on Amazon these days. And it amounted to DNS in some way, but they pushed an update and it's just like, you wake up, the world's on fire. What's happening? Amazon had an outage. And then everyone's like, whoa, don't forget that the internet literally is controlled by a handful of companies in the world. And then, I don't know, there's probably another one. And then Cloudflare just happened this week, which was smaller, but still, like, it points to the sheer amount of the world that runs on this infrastructure, and it's a problem.
Yeah,
but I mean, what are our other options? Like, they do it well and they have an outage, it blows up in their face, and 3 hours later everything is fine and people forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how everything goes, right? Once everything gets a little fixed and going, boom.
Yeah,
where
everyone's happy again.
Yeah, no one cares again. It's all like, okay, fine, hunky dory, right?
So the next one, and then everyone's going to hate Microsoft again because Azure had an outage or Google will have an outage.
Yeah. No. Fair enough. So when we look at the cloud, there's really kind of three models. Can you break down what those three models are and maybe how enterprises use them?
Know where you're going with this one, because foundational, again, there's infrastructure as a service. So using someone else's computer, right? Whether it's bare metal or virtualized infrastructure with a bunch of VMs running on top of a hypervisor. Don't ask me to explain every element of computing involved in the cloud stack, because
You have to explain it like I'm 5. My dad's going to call. I'm going to give my dad your number. I'm kidding. You can do it at whatever level.
I'm gonna hold the phone up and then just let the AI, whether it's Perplexity or Claude or somebody, explain it back to him.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
See, I'm getting creative with this. So anyway, infrastructure as a service. It's literally the hardware as a service. The cloud provider provides the machines, and you do everything on top of it, from the operating system to the applications, et cetera. And then you can configure the networking and such around that because it's virtualized infrastructure. Beyond that, it's the sort of like next click up. There's like this hierarchy. There's platform as a service, which is infrastructure as a service plus a little bit more, in that the cloud provider generally manages the operating system and some of the applications on top of it. And then you just bring whatever app you want to host on that platform and you run it. And that's what you're responsible for, the application of the data. And then the last one that we all know and love because we engage it every waking minute of the freaking day these days is software as a service. And that's it. It's everything. You bring the data and everything from the machine through the application is delivered to you as a service.
No.
Did I nail it?
I think you nailed it. I think the only
All
thing
right.
is that a lot of people, I usually hear these things through their acronyms, right? Like IaaS and then
IaaS, PaaS,
PaaS,
SaaS.
SaaS.
Yeah.
Yeah. One frustrating thing about SaaS is people say SaaS, but a lot of people mumble, right? SaaS is static application security testing. That's what's
Yeah.
commonly said
SaaS.
in applicary, but like, I don't know. We live in a world where everybody's in Zoom calls, right? Even if you have to go to a hybrid model, right? You go to the office and you still jump on Zoom calls at the end of the day, right? That's not everybody's in the
Yeah.
office. But every time when I'm talking to people, I'm like, yeah, the SaaS tool. And they're like, why are you saying SaaS? And I'm like, no, SAST with a T, not
Hard
with an
T.
S. Yeah. So I've gotten really good at SAST.
Emphasize.
Yeah.
I don't know. My wife always yells at me that because I mumble, and I'm just a quiet speaker. I know it doesn't come across in the podcast because I got an amazing mic and a Cameron that adjusts my audio levels for me sometimes. Um, but I generally speak quieter, and she doesn't like to listen to me anyway. So it's always like, "What? Stop mumbling." I'm like, I spoke perfectly clear in my head, at least.
True. Can you just read from my brain? Like that would be so
Yeah.
much easier.
Like I can hear myself and it sounded clear,
Yep.
but then
So
I'm the one that's actually hard of hearing. But that's a story for another time.
yeah, we can dive into that one another day. Uh, I think the first thing that's kind of next from foundational, right, from this perspective, is the shared responsibility model. And I think this really
Yep.
kind of talks through. I think with the shared responsibility model, we start to dive more into how security is applied, right? We just talked about
Yep.
what cloud is, the different things that run there. Those all, I say, define your security strategy, but everything, literally everything, is defined by the shared responsibility model. I mean, why is it so much different from on-prem? And why would you say people think this is more of a confusing or something that enterprises or people make mistakes around a lot?
Yeah. I think the on-prem thing is like you own the data center essentially. Well, sometimes you lease it, but in any case, let's use the simple model. You own the building and everything inside of it, and you have to manage it. You have to secure it. You have to make sure it works. You have to, if a server starts on fire, put the fire out and replace it. When you move to the cloud service providers are literally running those data centers for you. It's shared compute. And yes, there are ways you can get a cage inside that's dedicated to you and secured differently. But you
I didn't
share
even I
responsibility.
didn't even know that. You can literally pay to have an extra like section
I
of
think
the
I'm pretty sure you can pay enough money and they'll kind of cordon off your resources because physical security is very real. And we'll get into this with the shared responsibility model of you have responsibility for the resources you consume in the cloud, and the cloud service provider has responsibility for all of the hardware in the building and securing all of that. Because, like, try to walk up to an AWS data center, you'll never get near the place. And that's because they manage physical security for it. And I mean, they have to protect that because they have critical data for so many corporations and people in the world. Um, that's the simplest way. Or you often hear people say that the cloud service providers are responsible for the security of the cloud, meaning they protect those resources, and you're responsible for security in the cloud. So you own securing your applications and data and everything on those resources that you're consuming from the service provider. That's the simplest way to put it. It gets confusing because it's like, well, I thought that I was getting X, Y, and Z for free and inheriting the control from the cloud service provider. Well, they're not going to do your networking for you. Like if you opened your assets to the internet, that's on you. They can't stop you from shooting yourself in the foot.
That's funny. True.
I mean, they probably could, but if they did, they're going to have the masses like charging them or protesting outside their data center or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, give me the freedom to operate my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so from your perspective, I think maybe you sort of answered this, but why is it such a problem? Why is it key to know this? And why is it a problem security wise?
I think because securing it, like there's some slick graphics out on the internet that you can actually Google, and even AWS has a really good one that shows you like what you're responsible for versus what they're responsible for to make it mostly clear. I say mostly clear because there's always going to be gray areas. And I mean, working at different SaaS companies, that software as a service, not static application security, I forget the T. Whatever. Anyway, it blurs the lines, right? Who's responsible for what? Everyone wants to point the finger at each other. And it's just like, if you have control over it, so this is how I draw the line. If you have the ability to control whatever the security mechanism is or the configuration of the asset you're talking about, that's your responsibility. The cloud service provider is giving you the ability to have that control. So it's your responsibility to make sure you do it right. And they have all kinds of wonderful documentation that tells you how to do it right in different scenarios. I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I don't know why people get it wrong, because I explain it so many times to people and I've drawn diagrams. Like I've had non-security people say, explain to me the shared responsibility of our product. And I draw a pretty picture that highlights like, this is what our company does versus
it looks like a plane too, right?
It always looks like a plane. It's got the wings and everything. And it flies, I swear. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to the picture. Like I will control what I control and demonstrate that to a customer, whoever's asking to show. You don't have any ability to influence the configuration on these items. So that's my responsibility. Yeah. Now, what you can control is X, Y, and Z. That's your responsibility. And if you need help, call me.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I know during like when I'm conducting pen testing, our annual pen testing that we have to do, I work with our pen testers. And as we're scoping the environments, there's often a lot of questions around, what can we pen test? What shouldn't we pen test based off the connectivity patterns or these different things? And I know for me, the shared responsibility model pops in all the time. I'll have to tell the pen tester, or sometimes even with my auditors, right? Our auditors, sometimes I have to explain to them, hey, this is a direct connection from AWS. This is not our shared service, right? This is their software that connects that customer's database to our infrastructure. I'm not going to pen test that because I'm not AWS, right? You go grab AWS's stuff and then get that information, but that is not my responsibility to test that connection path. Yes, it's my responsibility to make sure the traffic that's going along that line is configured correctly, encrypted, and all things like that, right? That's my responsibility. And I've had plenty of conversations with that because they'll miss the point and be like, well, you have this connection here. I'm like, yeah, that's AWS Direct Connect. Sorry, but I'm not going to pen test that, right? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. The networking in the cloud is interesting because they have all of these constructs, like you mentioned, Direct Connect, and that's a way, like there is actual like physical connectivity kind of involved there. A lot of companies will have a data center and they need Direct Connect, and so you have to set this thing up and give you a high speed connection to your AWS resources. But at the same time, like AWS, Azure, Google, they all have these sorts of rules that are in play to basically say, don't pen test us. We will know and we will find you. So if you need to, tell us or ask for permission. I'm usually one of those people. I work in security, so I don't like to ask permission. I usually beg for forgiveness later when I make someone angry. AWS isn't someone I want to make angry.
Not going to make those guys angry at all. That makes sense.
No. Got to
So
play nice in the sandbox.
true, true.
I
So I
also
know
just remembered the T. I should have known it. It's testing.
I,
I don't know how I forgot that.
I knew it would come around. We'll let you have that one.
All right.
But
I'm off the team, but now I'm back on it.
yeah, you're back on the team. All right, good. We had an entire podcast on this kind of topic, but I think it's prudent that we kind of dive into it again, right? And I think what you said is that identity is key. It is not the new perimeter, right? It is you hammered home in
Oh,
that last podcast or podcast.
add
Speaking is hard. um, you hammered that home, right? That it is not, but for the cloud, it is essentially the most integral. I know, and today I posted my LinkedIn post because I've been doing a lot of research to prep. Identity is something I constantly hear. Like every vendor I was looking at and everything I was reading, it was like identity, boom, identity. And then I read something that's completely different, but then they would mention identity. And I was just like, dude, this theme keeps coming back, right? Kind of like the shared responsibility model, but I would say identity, at least in my thing, like shared responsibility model was barely talked about. Identity was something that I kept seeing it. I kept seeing it. Like, what is that?
I mean, it's a common theme, and identity. It depends on what's happening with technology. So, like, for a while, you'll hear about identity in pockets or from certain people that are very identity focused. But what's happening in the world today with AI has kind of lit a fire on identity all over again. And that's part of why it's hot. But I always rant about identity is not the new attack surface or whatever. It's not new. It's one of the oldest constructs in security. Like from the second someone was like, we need to have an audit trail and know who did what. Now you have identity. Like back in the day of mainframes, people didn't log in. They just they had a punch card. They fed it into the system. It's like Bob ran his punch card because I can see him standing right there. And then you got into computers that are connected to networks or multi-user systems, and you had to create this construct of identity to know who's doing what, so that if things go off the rails, you know who's in trouble or who done it. And then you go after, call the police, go arrest Bob. And so I'll always go off on the tangent of it is not new. It's one of the oldest, and everyone should care about it. And I'm guilty of this. I've said this before, that I always thought identity was boring. I wanted nothing to do with it. I thought the identity people were crazy. I didn't understand half the stuff they were saying sometimes, but now I respect those people a lot. And I think I was on a different podcast earlier this week and we were talking about identity. And at one point I said, go give your local identity guy a hug. So, because they do amazing things, and honestly, they keep the lights on. Without them, it's all going to burn down. So identity is extremely important, and people are saying it is the perimeter these days because, I mean, how do you control access to resources? It's not network barriers anymore. Back when we all had data centers, it's like you have the building, you have your network. There's one path in, and that's your VPN or whatever. And there's one path out through a cluster of firewalls. And so you have this sort of network perimeter. No one's allowed inside my network. That's gone. We blew that up with, and work from home kind of put it on steroids too, right? Because now everyone's decentralized, and we have split tunneling VPN systems. So not all of your traffic is getting funneled through that one VPN appliance and whatnot. And so if we don't have a physical barrier being the building, and we don't have a network perimeter, what do we have? We have identity. It all comes down to who is allowed to access certain things.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we moved away from, the castle and the moat kind of analogies, right? The front doors. No longer.
I was trying to keep the door out of it, man.
It no longer is that, right? Everybody is kind of in the castle now. And all the tools and applications and everything we're building is all in the castle, right? So everything has to be is authenticated, right? You have to identify who is coming. It's kind of like walking around with a badge, I would say, in a way, from everything, right? With the explosion of SaaS applications too, everything underneath the hood is SaaS, which means, and microservices, multi-cloud, right? We're seeing a lot of that. companies running their applications in different clouds and have intermingling services from cloud to cloud, right? All these different
Yeah.
things, you have to authenticate before you do anything. And it's the easiest thing to get wrong, I would say, in a way that could just blow up your company, right? You have one unauthenticated high priority service, right? Something that's highly critical, and you're popped, right? Crazy.
Yeah. This is why we get all bent out of shape about unauthenticated APIs. Like, still, as a security person, have this conversation in 2025 with developers and engineers and architects, and they're like, well, it's all internal only, so why do I need to authenticate? Like, because the network is not your perimeter anymore. Like, I can get on any network pretty easily these days. Like, it's pretty easy to just walk into it. Like, physical pen testers do this. They'll just walk into a building, tailgate somebody, plug an Ethernet cable into the wall, and game over. And no one's like, who's that guy sitting over there? We've never seen him before.
Yep. Or you
Like,
dress up
that's a
as a
real
grandma.
story.
You dress up as a grandma, right? Or you have your actual grandma go in and act like a worker, and no one's gonna suspect. They're gonna let her on be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, who's gonna suspect that sweet old lady just walking in the building like she's going to work and being like, hey, you don't belong here?
That's fair.
So I mean, it all comes down to, you got to prove who you are, for one. So that's the authentication. But then let's not forget, authorization is a big part of identity. Do you actually have permission to do what you want to do?
Yeah.
And that's arguably even more important, because this is how attackers exploit systems. It's easy to get the credential to say, I am Kurt. Now, if you get that, what can Kurt do? Now they start kind of doing the recon on what are those permissions, or what can I touch? And then from there, then the lateral movement comes into play, right? And so this is why over permissioned identities are bad, because if you have too much access and it falls into the wrong hands, recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And by over permission identities, you're essentially saying like somebody who has access to something, they have too much access, right? And we have to apply least privilege.
Yep. So over permission meaning you have access to do things that you don't need to do. So you've broken the principle of least privilege, which says you have only the permissions you need to do your job and nothing more. And I mean, the gross kind of abusive example of this is people are like, I'm too lazy to figure out, have admin access. In AWS policies, that's just administrator access policy or star. Use the wild cards and have fun.
Have a good time.
Get your hand on one of those. You can do anything. It's fun.
All right.
Actually, I own a cloud account at work, and they won't even let me be the admin, but 3 or 4 of the people on my team have admin. I'm like, how does that work?
Because you're high profile, right? You're high profile. People are going to
They
target you.
They don't want me to touch things anyway, because I'll always break it.
That's
They're
fair.
like, why didn't you do that?
Whoops.
Yeah,
Not bad. So
it's fun.
we're already starting to talk a lot around security concerns. I'm going to toss out some security concerns, and you got to pick one, which is your top.
Man.
I know picking favorites or picking tops is hard. I was going to say that on what you were talking about, like auth versus authn, right? So authentication versus authorization. I agree. When we had the last I can't say podcast.
You're having a day, man.
That's the one word today.
Too much excitement around this podcast the past 10 days.
True. The OWASP one that we released, I think I still, in my brain, is still bouncing around. Like, why is broken access control and authorization failures separate? They should just be one category. I'm saying here and now. I think in 2025 to 2029, when the next one comes out, there'll be one category, because they want to slot something in, and it's going to be like, broken, I don't know, front doors control.
Broken window.
Broken front door and lock. So it covers both in one category. I can totally see that happening. But based off these kind of points, right? What is your top security concern? And it could be not for one of these. I'm throwing out some examples. Identity, misconfigurations, APIs, data exposure, or supply chain. And I know you have to only pick one, and you're like, I want all these, right?
Fair.
You
It's like
can't. You got to pick one.
it depends on like which way the wind blows, man. They're all top concerns. Is all of the above an answer?
It is an answer, but you got to talk about one.
Well, I already beat identity to death, and
Yeah,
that's
let's throw that one out of there.
fine. Identity would have been my answer, but I already beat the crap out of it. So we're gonna move on from identity for now. So we could have like 6 more episodes about identity, and I'll have to bring some friends, but it'll be fun. Um, Misconfigurations is another one that it's going to be my number 2. Not just because it's the second one you said, but because like I've been doing research recently. I've read all kinds of articles. Like I write blog posts on the side. You'll see me post stuff on LinkedIn occasionally, but misconfigurations is still a leading cause of breaches. Identity is one, misconfigurations is another. And that's just because whether you fat finger it or you miss something or you wrote your infrastructure as code wrong, you let something open and exposed, like perfect example, AWS S3 bucket, storage, a bucket of storage, blob storage, whatever you like to call it. If you leave it open to the public and anyone can just access it, grab your data and run, you're none the wiser, and it'll be too late before you realize it. So it's things like that where you configure it wrong, thus misconfiguration, and it creates an exposure. And these things happen at scale because the speed at which people can build things in the cloud has just accelerated. It's exploded. The cloud has been mainstream for like 10 plus years now, and people are just going nuts with it. Misconfigurations are still very common. Yeah.
Which I think perfectly leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is CSPM. I see this
And
acronym everywhere.
define it.
I want you to define it. I see it
Come on
everywhere.
now.
I know, fine. Cloud security posture management, right?
Yes.
Every company I've been at, we've had this tool, right? Like in the AppSec tool scenario, I always say we always see SAST, SCA, DAST, and some kind of pen testing is kind of like every company I've worked at always have those things, right? Because of compliance and for basic security, that meets a lot of needs.
Checking
CS
boxes.
checking boxes, yeah, which we
Hot
all
take.
hate.
No, not doing
Let's,
it.
nope, don't go down that one. Let it go. You got me now thinking about it. So you got me to completely. With CSPM being its staple for our cloud security, why is it a staple? Break it down. There's a lot of other acronyms that also accompany it. We'll jump into those too.
Yeah. There's a ton of acronyms and tools that kind of come with the territory of CSPMs. And these a CSPM is basically table stakes today because this is what you plug into your cloud accounts, and it gives you visibility into all of your assets and their configurations. And there's all the vendors that build these things. I mean, the market is saturated at this point. Like you have the big dogs, Palo Alto and CrowdStrike, and Wiz is in that category now. But you have newcomers like Upwind is a favorite I've heard a lot about that are doing things a little bit differently. But they pull in all of this data from the cloud service provider APIs and build this database of assets, configurations, and they start analyzing it. And they have these policies built in because they want to provide you a good service that flags misconfigurations. So this is how you paint the picture of risk in your cloud estate very easily. Now I make it sound easy, but it takes work to integrate the account. And then beyond that, there's a lot of work to do because these things are very noisy. They basically say, I think everything is a risk, and you need an army to go analyze all of it and figure out what's a real risk. To put even more context to it, I've worked in a few large enterprises where we plug this thing into either hundreds of cloud accounts or thousands of cloud accounts. Take a guess at how many alerts I would see in the thousands of cloud accounts scenario.
Billions.
Not billions.
All right, millions.
But if things are bad, you'll go over 1 million. The highest I have gone personally is about 780,000.
That's a lot.
And that's on roughly, I think 75 plus million assets, which is resources, I should say, because it thinks everything is a resource, like an identity configuration, a server, some weird configuration you never even thought of. It'll be like, hey, that's a thing. Like, okay.
Hmm. That's a lot. That's
There,
a lot of noise to sift through.
SecOps teams hate it. Never plug this into your SIM. Always do it more strategically. Like I work with our SecOps team to filter these things and try to weed out the noise. Or there's new providers coming in the cloud detection and response. So like we have EDR, endpoint detection and response. Now we have cloud detection and response, CDR, as a thing that's often goes hand in hand with the CSPM, because it's like, I have 700,000 alerts. What the hell do I do with this? Do I hire 7 people to sit here all day and comb through it and determine what's a false positive versus what's a real risk? Or do we use technology to build more context, analyze that information further, and say, hey, here's what your real risks are, and here's the noise? Because these tools don't have the context of your environment. You have to spend time tuning and tweaking and customizing policies to make sure that it works for you. And that's why they're so hard to actually use.
Yeah, I think that. Now, from a SOC perspective, when I've used CSPMs in my past, right, and I still do, but when I'm using these tools, there's a lot of alerts, right, detections that are mostly related from what I see, like misconfigurations, right, overprivileged identities,
Yeah.
services that should have less access, just essentially what is kind of commonly called as like cloud compliance / hygiene, right? But you're saying that from the SecOps side, they hook into this sometimes and utilize some of that information. Like I'm thinking for my SecOps team, they're really looking for, have we been breached?
Yeah.
Right? Is there something going? Is we already have like an APT or some kind of threat that's already mingling around in the cloud that we don't know of? Is that something a CSPM, I would say, actually helps with?
Sometimes. So the CSPMs can see like all the data, all the activity, and it analyzes that. It finds anomalous behavior. It finds anomalous network activity. So it can point to, hey, that looks funny. You should go look at it. And a SecOps team can use that to enrich the other telemetry they're getting from all the other sources to correlate events, right? To say this is suspicious, but we're seeing suspicious activity over here too. Do they actually line up? Are they related? Are they the same thing? And so there's limited value, I would say, in that, although the CSPMs, the major players in this space, are really moving into, like, they're augmenting their capabilities with more runtime capabilities. And so that's where we start getting more into CDR and even XDR, which EDR has evolved into XDR. Um, I don't even know what the X stands for. It's just like X meaning anything, right?
It's
Detection and
extreme.
response. Extended. It's extended.
It's not. Are you sure it's not extreme?
I mean, it seems pretty extreme, but it's, again, evolving from like just getting visibility. I mean, CSPM, the goal is visibility. You can't secure what you can't see. Now, what do I do with all that? Do I just build a ton of automation to go address all of it? Because let's face it, these things do come out of the box and they can remediate some issues. But again, do you want to shoot yourself in the foot, or do you want to do it more tactically and make sure you're actually doing it right in your environment? So you have to be very careful with that. Like, I've sat in meetings about these, and everyone's like, do you use the auto remediate capability? And everyone's like, why? Like, I don't want to blow up my environment. That's as good as testing in production. I know there's a lot of hot takes there, so I'm going to stop with that one.
I mean, so when we're dealing, right, you said you had like 70,000 detections, right? This is a common thing, I would say, in the AppSec, world. I would say just in ProdSec in general, with different
Yeah.
tools, you have these mountain of issues. So with the respect of CSPM, how do you first slice and dice these things so that teams can be effective in actually remediating, I would say the highest, truest risk?
Yeah. They all come out of the box with the critical high, medium, low informational
You
sort of
have to.
alert.
I mean, you have to, right?
Yeah.
Because how do you
So
got to categorize it some way.
yeah, so it's usually like get your bearings, plug it in, watch it light up like a Christmas tree, and then start digging in. So look at the criticals, see what it thinks are your biggest issues, and understand why it's saying those things. Another thing I like to do is go through the list of policies and be like, what do I actually care about versus what's just noise? Because it's a standard configuration that we use and it's a low impact thing, but at the end of the day, it's really no risk. I might eliminate 50,000 alerts just turning off a few policies that are noisy. And so you can tune it and pare it down to what matters to you most and then start digging into those things. But I mean, a lot of people will rank these like what policies trigger the highest number of alerts. I'm going to start there, right? Because my goal is to get to zero. I want this
Yep.
thing to say you have zero issues, which if you get to
We
zero,
never get
call
to
me.
zero. Nobody ever gets to
Like,
zero. It's
I want to
you
meet
always
someone
have
who gets to
something.
zero. I've never seen it. I would like to, but I don't think it's possible. Um, so there's different strategies, and the vendors will always kind of help you based on their experience because they see a lot of it, obviously. Um, and then actually addressing the issues is a whole nother sort of monster. This is like the eat the elephant one bite at a time, but I don't like to eat elephants. So let's talk about burritos or tacos or whatever, like we had in that one episode. But I think people also need to be careful with this because I've recognized recently working with, like, I was doing a POC with a vendor that's more in the cloud detection and response space, where they augment your CSPM and analyze the data, contextualize it, and help you with that sort of L1 investigation. And we had this massive risk just sitting out there. There were 5 alerts tied to this, but it was probably the biggest risk we had buried in that data. They found it.
So you're what I'm hearing is CSPM vendors in general probably need to do it better about sifting through its data. Do you think I'm going to throw out the dirty word right now? AI is going to
Uh-oh.
help with that? Was the platform or vendor you were looking for an AI company?
It does use AI to do some analysis and investigation automation. So AI is changing the world a bit. I think I don't want to throw too much shade at the CSPM vendors because I mean, at the end of the day, they're building a tool that analyzes a ton of data, points to potential issues, and you can't do that as one size fits all, right? So they have to build it in such a way that it works for the masses, and then you scale it back based on your own environment, right? Because if you plugged it in, turned it on, and it told you nothing, and you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a tool, you're going to be like, why did I do that?
Hmm. So
Whereas the reverse is blow me up with alerts. Tell me where the risks are or potential risks so that I get at least a picture and then scale it back.
So I'm what I'm hearing from your perspective and your shared responsibility model for CSPMs is that their job is to find all the alerts. It's our job to tune those to meet our needs and then sift through them and then essentially recategorize or prioritize things so that those high priority dirt, the really risky ones are found.
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if I agree with your take. I'm actually going to disagree with you. I think it is the burden of the vendor to find these things. I'm writing some things and I've been taking a lot of notes because I've been reading a lot of cool blogs from different vendors and different things and research. But like from an AppSec, I would say this is just ProdSec. I would say we really, as vendors, our vendors really need to shift from a detection model. And what I'm seeing is a lot of detection where everybody's heading to detection and then everybody's heading to like detection and reachable, right? Reachable could
Yeah.
be like, are you actually using the vulnerability? Is it part of your system? Things like that. There's a lot of different ways, but we need to move away from even reachability. We need to move to, are we exploitable, right?
Yeah.
Is
I
this
agree.
vulnerability something that can actually be exploited in an environment rather than some hypothetical, right? We deal with this all the time. I know you see it all the time with the cloud because I plug in all our containers and we're scanning all our containers, right? All these different things. There's a ton of, often containers light up like Christmas trees. Then you actually dive into all the vulnerabilities and you're like, okay, 99% of these were just noise. We don't use
Yep.
anything. I personally think vendors should need to shift in that direction to where they contextualize that. Even that if it takes AI to get us there, I think AI is going to be a faster path, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. It probably will be. But in general, that's where vendors really need to head. We need to move away from this detection and throwing it to the customer, or detection and reachability. Again, you still have a ton that you have to, false positives and things you have to sift through. We really need to move towards detection and valid exploitation risk, or at least the highest priority categories that your tooling finds. Those are the ones that you should be targeting for this kind of research and understanding, to make sure that your customers, don't have to do that themselves. I do this all the time with all our tooling. Literally everything I build also has to build automation on top of it. I have to do
Yeah.
additional threat intelligence, a supplement of information. We do our deep dives. Maybe we build some kind of internal tool that like rep analysis, depending on the attack vector, right? It's not pretty, but it's better than throwing it over the fence to the dev and, or somebody else's time, wasting their time. I'm constantly thinking about how can I tune my tooling to be more effective. I'm sure CSPMs are doing the same thing. They're just,
Trying.
yeah, I think they're trying. I mean, in the words of another vendor in certification that I know, try harder.
I think it's AI is going to help, or is helping change this, right? What you're talking about is higher fidelity alerts. Like, stop with so much
Yep.
noise and do some of the investigation for me. Like, talk to any security operations person in the world today, and they're going to tell you, like, I'm using AI to augment the SOC and free up human time to do, like, make the computers work 24/7 to investigate alerts and build the context so that I can focus on what actually matters, right? We need to do the same in this space and basically everywhere, because, right, time is money. We don't have infinite budgets, and you don't, like, 700,000 alerts. How many people does it take to work full time and get through all of that initially and get it operating to the point where it stays low? I don't even know what that number would be. It's crazy.
Yes. All right. Let's shift gears. So one of the things that I think that I usually see that comes with a CSPM, I'm going to correct me if I'm wrong here, but is cloud workload protection platform. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's what I always see it as CWPP, right? And I actually keep messing up
There's
the
there's a lot of
saying, right?
acronyms.
There's so many, right? And they all start with a C because they always say cloud, right?
Yep.
And then they have a P in there somewhere for platform or protection or
Posture, platform,
posture.
whatever.
Yeah, it's just you get them all tangled up. But from my perspective, I view this one, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm going to throw it out here. I've never actually run this by you, but I view it as like the antivirus or EDR of a CSPM, right? Because from what I understand, it protects our workloads, right? And by workloads, I mean anything infrastructure wise that's running. So the computers, right? Whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
you could define that computer as a container, a virtual thing, a serverless, right? We have lambdas and things. It protects those and detects malicious behavior or malicious
Yeah.
actions or vulnerabilities, right? That's the one I think I'm like, all right, I think there's definitely indicators there. That's what the SOC would want, right? That's
Yeah.
fidelity results, at least something they want. The anomalous behavior stuff that I sometimes see out of these toolings, I'm like, that I want to feed straight to the SOC. Vulnerabilities, not so much, but if someone's doing ransomware or malware, right? Someone has some
Yeah.
compromise to my front end microservice or something, I want my SOC team to know that right away.
Absolutely. So, I mean, cloud workload protection platform, the last P, CWPP. Um, it is, you say antivirus or EDR, XDR, whatever, it's runtime. It's runtime protection for your cloud applications. And this is where I think a lot of the new players are focusing, because detection is great, but that means that the bad event already happened. And so we need to move to a model. That's funny. I think your
It is
camera
funny.
just went out.
Yeah.
But we need to get away from detection so much, because that means the event already happened. We detected it. The speed at which attackers move today, they're already gone. Like, they got what they wanted, they are gone. So you need to be in the runtime actively preventing and protecting against those threats. And that's where we're starting to see the major players go, and where um, the newer solutions are focusing more. And it's, again, like, we're evolving as an industry to be like, yeah, we could detect it and respond to it, and all the wonderful things are SOC done quickly. We need to stop the response. The response needs to be automated in the moment, and machines operate at milliseconds, nanoseconds, whatever. Just like how recently we saw Claude Code weaponized by nation state level actor. How do you defend against that? Same technology that they use to attack with.
Yeah.
So something dynamic and evolving quickly, like, we as defenders have to do the same.
That's an interesting perspective, and yes, 100%. But I envision with that mentality I don't know how to say an interesting world where it's no longer human against human. It is AI bot versus AI bot, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what, like, if we're utilizing all this technology, I know our attackers are, so we have to elevate to use it too. It's it's just gonna be AI bot versus AI bot nonstop.
Machine against machine,
Yeah.
always. I mean, it's a fascinating world. Like, you could talk to people that have worked in, like, cyber warfare and whatever. Like, it's crazy, some of the attacks that these people have been a part of or come up with and whatnot. Like, we could probably have a whole episode just on that type of stuff. But we've beaten up CSPM. We've kind of glossed over cloud workload protection. It's runtime protection, whether it's network, it's malware, it's DNS, it's viewing everything. You can set detection, you can set prevention, you can ignore it entirely. You could do this with Kubernetes and containerized environments. You could do it on VMs, you could do it on serverless, like you said. There's a million other acronyms that are going to come with your CSPM, Cloud Infrastructure Entitlements Management, CIEM, or KEEM, as some people call it, is another big one, which is like the identity. And this space is evolving too. There's now ISPM, Identity Security Posture Management. It's an evolution. So finding identity issues and flagging them and being able to address them. What else? I'm just trying to move through these quickly because there's so many tools we could talk about.
There's so many tools. So I kind of want to ask you this, right? We try to end these things within an hour, or roughly an hour. I had this question because I'd been thinking about it as I was doing research and putting together what I think. But for you, Kurt, right? You have an unlimited budget. What? I know, but in this hypothetical world, right? It's full of unicorns. You have endless coffee. Every time you drink that coffee, that cup fills back up. You never get super
That's a
jittery,
dream.
right? You can sleep the whole night. It's great. There's no problem sleeping. You can eat all the cookies you want, all right? And you have infinite amount of budget, all right? In that hypothetical world, right? You have a SaaS application that you have to secure. What is your ideal security tech stack? And before you just start throwing things at the wall, right? I want you to take the strategic leadership perspective, which I already know you will. All right. What's the order, right? For our listeners, right? There's a lot of teams that are not going to have all the time or all the budget to do everything. I know I have, I kind of have my list that I base off my research. I kind of want to hear your list.
There's a lot to this. Now, you've got me thinking, like, you got me all excited. I was like, unlimited budget, I could have all of it. And you're like, well, not everyone has that. So what order would you do these things in? And I kind of had an exchange on LinkedIn about this a little bit earlier. But you have to start with the basics, right? So what does that mean? Well, you need to know what you're trying to secure. So you need visibility. And you say, oh, here it comes. You need a CSPM. Yes, that's table stakes in the world today.
Boom.
Absolutely.
That's on the table.
Before,
That's the
like,
salt and pepper.
to go with that though, like you need good asset management or resource management. Like you need to know what you're dealing with, and CSPM layered in with that. They kind of blend together, and then say what your risks or potential risks are. I'm all for the higher fidelity alerts. That's the dream. When we get there, it'll be very exciting. Beyond that though, where do I go from there? Now I can see it all. What do I do next? Well, you have to be able to do the detection and response. So your SOC has to be equipped with the right technology. You got to have a SIM. You got to have your EDR or XDR to protect the assets that you have within your ecosystem. These are the basics. I didn't say identity because, well, identity security technology is expensive, and well, you're operating in the cloud, so you should be building your IAM, users, roles, policies, et cetera, responsibly without any of these tools. That's fundamentals. If you're going to use the cloud, manage your identities. If you don't, you end up in a messy situation that you're going to get breached.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's some decent like open source identity tools that like pull all your identities and then do some analyzing locally. They're a good step in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
Like at least it's better than not better than an actual, vendor tool, but it's something that like if you pull the information, it'll, choke through it and give you like, here's recommendations.
Yeah. If you're in just AWS, use IAM Access Analyzer. That's what it's there for. This data all exists in API calls, and it can analyze it and say like your identities are right sized or not. Here's how you fix them if you need to. So absolutely leverage those CSP native tools they do cost money. But if you're in a single cloud, use the one that you have. Absolutely do it. Take it. What else? Secrets management. We didn't talk a lot about this. Don't leak your secrets. Don't put it in code. Use a vault of whatever, AWS Secrets Manager, Azure Key Vault, HashiCorp Vault. If you're a fan of them, there's other solutions, but those are the most popular. Protect your secrets. You have to, because again, secrets in code or leaked keys. This is another common way that companies get breached or people's data gets stolen. So you have to, that's another sort of foundational item. It's identity, there's secrets management, there's visibility, there's endpoint protection, and there's your centralized log management with the SIM. And from there you grow. Then there's going to be sort of medium level tools and more advanced tools if you got the money for it. I think an interesting one, if you want to go back to a conversation we had with an expert recently, is I know you have talked about like cloud access security brokers or CASBs. You don't hear a lot about these anymore because it's kind of evolved into SASE, SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. I'm on it with my acronyms today, man. This is not normal.
Nailing it.
I don't even have a reference in front of me.
Yeah, I had a different order.
What's your order?
I had CSPM with CWPP, right? Because those kind of go in hand. I feel like a lot of tools vendors I've seen, they usually are united. One, you usually don't.
You're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna get a CSPM without the workload protection anymore. So I just think of those as kind of one thing.
Yeah. And then I had CIEM, so Cloud Infrastructure Entitlements Management, right? I had DSPM, so Data Security Posture Management.
I have a hot take on all of these right now.
All right, let me finish.
You want to hear it?
You can tear me apart. All right. And then the Cloud Access Security Broker. I could see you itching. You're just like, definitely a SIM, but I listed SIM in there because I was like, hey, just in case if you don't, have one, you should have one. XDR, like you were saying, secrets management, container security tooling. I feel that is already kind of in CWPP, but I just wanted to make sure. Sometimes some companies don't scan; they just find vulnerabilities in the running one, and then it's not kind of the same. I feel like they're two different. And then probably zero trust network, and then policy as code. I see you smiling. Tear me apart.
I'm trying to digest it all right now. So most of those acronyms that you just listed, let's go through them. CSPM, CWPP, CIEM, KEEM, DSPM. If you buy a CSPM in the market today, it generally has all of those.
Yeah.
That's one tool. CSPM covers all of that. Now, don't take it for granted. Most of these things are credit based, and you will run up a massive bill. Believe me, I've done it. I have shot myself in the foot. I've blown my whole leg off. I have broken my arm. I've seen it all, and it hurts a lot when you get a bill for $200,000 you weren't expecting. Luckily, that wasn't going to go to my credit card. It was the company, but I had some explaining to do. These things are expensive to run. They come together. So be careful with those modules. You will get all of them. Enable them carefully. DSPM especially. It gets expensive analyzing a lot of data, but it depends on the solution too. From there, like that's one tool. To me, CSPM covers a lot of different capabilities. Secrets management, I harp on because it's sort of like do it right, avoid breaches, kind of goes hand in hand with identity management.
Don't leak secrets.
Don't leak secrets. And then when you get to like ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access, Zscaler made this very popular. At the end of the day, I think of like CASB, SASE, and ZTNA as you need one thing to control access to different applications. You don't really see ZTNA anymore. Like it was hot when everyone's like, we must be zero trust, which we didn't even talk about here because we could probably do a whole episode on it. But it's like continuous authentication and authorization, trust nobody, hence zero trust. It's very important. That's if you're not doing zero trust today, you don't belong anywhere near the cloud.
Yeah, I'm sad we missed it, you know, based off the time and what we had and the constraints we have. I definitely want to probably circle back around it in another podcast. But I feel like the identity one, we definitely talked a lot about zero trust and a lot of those different things. So
I think about this. We're going to need another episode on cloud security, like hands down.
Round 2, deeper dive.
2 or 3. We need a second one, maybe a third one. This one was foundational. We talked about identity. We talked a little bit about secrets, CSPM, what have you. Where do we go from here? There's so many places you can go in the cloud. It's crazy, cloud security, especially. So stay tuned for more, I guess, on that front. But what do we miss? What do we got to get into this one that we didn't cover, Cameron?
I think that's it. I think we're good to go. Wrap it up. I think the only thing that I made a mistake on, as we always have to say, please, wherever you're listening, give us 5 stars, whatever it is, 10 stars, 7 stars, whatever the max is. Really appreciate that. Like, subscribe, follow, smash the smash. And I mean, I think we had a great conversation today. I definitely think we need more conversations around cloud security. It's a big beast, and everything that our modern infrastructure today runs on, everything you do today uses it, and you especially feel that when one of them goes down. I would say over the last few weeks, we've definitely been feeling that. It's kind of showing us these different redundancies that we might need, right? So I think some of these companies need to practice chaos monkey and properly test, maybe test a little less in prod and test in a little, dev and make sure you don't push something that messes up DNS. But yeah, Kurt, any last comments?
Oh, this is fun. I could go all day, but we can't. So I'm gonna try and tame the caffeine. I try to tame chaos everywhere we go. Now I'm gonna tame the caffeinated monster and stop. So take us home.
All right. Again, like, smash, rate, hi, do those things. Smash the smash, follow. This is Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec.
Looking forward to